Okay, we are on to lesson 3. So this is a really important lesson. So going down here is we are starting nouns now. And first, we're going to talk about the first declension. And right after that, going into first declension, it talks about characteristics of Greek nouns. So before talking about first declension, I think this is really important. It talks about what is the nominative case, what is the genitive, dative, accusative, and vocative. And so to talk about these, I'm going to bring up just some English examples here to help us out. So the nominative case is generally the subject of the verb, or the one who is doing the action of the verb. Okay, for example, Billy hits the ball. Billy is the subject doing the verb hitting, and so in Greek, Billy would be in the nominative case. We don't have this anymore in English as much, but we do see it in pronouns. So if I was to say, I hit the ball, I is the nominative form of, referring to myself. Where, if I want to put I into the accusative case, the accusative is the object of the verb, to who or what the action is done to, is what the accusative is. So the ball is the accusative. Billy hits what? The ball, right? And so the ball is in the accusative. For I, the accusative case would be me. Billy hits me. I can't say Billy hits I. That doesn't work grammatically because I is nominative. Okay, so that is nominative and accusative. Nominative is the subject, accusative is the object of what is being hit or being done to. Some more examples here. Right here, John runs. John would be in the nominative. It gets harder with question words, like what is Homer doing? Homer is the subject who is doing something, the verb, and he's doing what is the object, and that would be in the accusative. Ronnie tells a secret. Ronnie is the one doing the action, telling the secret. So Ronnie is in the nominative, secret is in the accusative. You can have multiple nominatives. You can have multiple nouns in a sentence, but sometimes people get confused with the predicate nominative. So this is kind of like the object of a sentence that, rather than having an action verb, has a state of being verb. So like I have here, Bob is quick. Isn't an action. He's not doing anything. Quick is just a description of Bob. And so both of these would be in the nominative case in Greek. Same thing here. Jacob is the coach. Isn't an action verb. Coach is just describing something about Jacob, so they're both in the nominative. Okay, so that is nominative and accusative. I will put this document in the video description so you can practice these for yourselves. So I have practices here. So it's meant to be, you kind of hold it like this, get the cat, and then you label it, and then you can scroll down and check your answer on this side, and then do the next problem. And so they're offset like that for you to go down yourself. So it's nominative and accusative, subject and object, genitive and dative. So genitive generally tells you kind of possession of something. So but not always. That's a common use. But basically, you translate it as of before the noun. And dative is often the indirect object to whom or to what you do an action. So if I had said, I give to him a letter, to him is the indirect object, where letter is the direct object. And so dative is translated generally with to, with, in, or by. And it's not always indirect object, but that's a common use. So let's look at some examples here. So I went to the house of Jim. So here, went is the verb. I is the one doing the action. So that is in the nominative. To the house, that is to, within, or by. It is to there. So it's the direction towards which. So it's in the dative. And then whose house is it? It's the house of Jim. Of is your key telling you that it is genitive. Let's go down here. Polly was hit by a ball of steel. So Polly is the subject of the verb. Was hit is the verb. By the ball, to, with, in, or by for the dative. So this is dative. And then the ball of steel, made of steel here. So of there telling you that this is genitive. Okay? So that is dative and genitive. So genitive, remember of. Dative, remember to, with, and by, or twib for short. And then the last case here is vocative. This is when you are directly talking to somebody, or talking, usually to somebody or about someone. So here, Sam, go to the store. I'm addressing Sam. So that would be in the vocative case. And then go is the verb. To the store, to, within, or by, twib, would be dative. Beloved brethren, I tell you the truth. Beloved brethren is being addressed, so that would be in the vocative. I is the subject, so that would be in the nominative of the person doing the action of telling, the verb. Telling to who? Dative, you. And then telling what? The truth. Accusative. And then I have further exercises down here that you can work on your own. But hopefully it helps kind of clear up. This is really important. This is like the foundation to nouns. And so those are these different uses. And then what we have is different declensions. And these are just different ways that nouns are formed. Okay, so an example would be a similar example in English of a different declension of nouns would be something like, I can talk about one book and multiple books, right? I can add an S to the end of book to make it plural, but that's not the only way to form the plural of nouns. We have different words, like I have one goose and multiple geese. Goose, geese. They're both singular plural. They're communicating the same meaning, but they're different declensions in English. They're just formed in a different way. So in Greek, the first declension are nouns that end with an alpha or an eta. And then here it talks about there are 3 different types of first declensions. There's pure alpha, pure eta, and mixed. And they're pretty self-explanatory there. So you can see we have pure alpha here in aura. And you can see alpha all the way down in the singular and alpha all the way down in the plural, genitive being an exception. If we go to the pure eta, you can see eta all the way down in the singular. And good news, it's alpha all the way down in the plural. So in all first declension endings, the plural is the same. It's always going to be alpha all the way down. So these pure alpha, pure eta are referring to what happens in the singular. And then mixed is what you would expect, right? There's alpha here, 2 etas, and then alphas, but in the plural you have alpha all the way down. If you compare these though, the endings are still the same. So the only thing that is changing is the eta or the alpha. But notice here, there's no letter on the end. of these. In the genitive, there is a sigma stuck on the end. In the dative, if you can see it, there's an iota subscript, which isn't pronounced, but you'll see this in datives in all noun forms. This is a giveaway for datives. You can see the iota subscript there and there. And then in the accusative, you can see the nu there and there. And then vocative is the same as the nominative in both of those. If I go back up to the alpha pure, you can see the same. No ending in the nominative, sigma in the genitive, iota subscript in the dative, nu in the accusative, and the vocative is the same as the nominative. These are really important endings to memorize. You'll see these all over, and they do change meaning, right? So this is something with Greek, is it's not as bound to word order as English is. So in my English examples, I had like Billy hits the ball. In Greek, you could say the ball hits Billy, but you change the case so that you know that the ball is accusative and Billy is nominative, and thus communicating the meaning that Billy hits the ball, even though the word order is flipped. And so paying attention to the endings is going to be central in Greek. We'll talk in many, many lessons the importance of word order in Greek, but that's for another day. So, key takeaway here is memorize your forms and know the different functions of nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative, and how those are translated into English. So there's a little blurb here on the definite article. This is just pointing out that in your vocab, so going back to the top, your vocab, see, it says adelphi e, and that has the article right after it. That article tells you the gender of the word. So this tells you that these are all feminine gender. We'll get into masculine with the second declension. Gender doesn't, grammatical gender doesn't necessarily map on to the reality of things. It often does, like sister. But something like kingdom, there's no real gender of a kingdom. It just happens to be the way that the grammar uses it. So, but the gender tells you how it's formed. So, because first declension endings are going to be slightly different than second declension. So that's why knowing the gender is important. But we will get into the article later in a couple of chapters. So that section is only there to tell you that the article at the end of vocab is just telling you the gender of the word. And with, paragraph 20 here, with accents, don't worry about it. Just emphasize where you see it emphasized. But don't stress yourself over those. And so that brings us to the end. So hopefully this was helpful, and go to work memorizing your first declension endings.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Bible Toolbox. All of the resources mentioned in this episode are posted on our website, thebibletoolbox.com. There you can also find out more information on how to give and support us, and we have loved all of the encouragement and feedback we've received from you, so thanks so much.